Hey there, welcome to the channel. So winter sowing, yes or no? What's your opinion on winter sowing? I've been promoting and making videos about winter sowing for several years. I really like this method for a lot of reasons, but I'm kind of, finding a lot of cons that are outweighing the pros of this method. So in this video, we're going to talk about winter sowing, and I'm going to tell you why I'm thinking of maybe not doing it anymore. So let's get started. So first of all, I'm just going to go through all the things that I did start in the winter sowing method. And as you can see here, this is all I did this year. I didn't do a whole lot simply because one of the reasons is I do start a lot of things indoors. I'm fortunate enough to have space to do that. I have all sorts of lighting. I have all sorts of sunny windows. I have all sorts of time. And so, I do end up starting a lot of things indoors, the traditional way, from seed, under lights, that kind of stuff. So this year I just narrowed it down to a few things that normally worked for me in the past. I've got lots of videos out there where I've done herbs, I've done, the cold tolerant things like cabbages, the brassicas. I've done all sorts of flowers. I've tried all sorts of perennials, annuals, and a lot of them didn't turn out very good for me. I didn't have good luck with germination for whatever reason. I don't know. So this year I just narrowed it down to things that had worked for me in the past, and that's mostly the onions and the lettuces. I tried a few different things here that I'm going to show you. One of them was lavender, which is just starting to sprout. Now, lavender is something that takes a long time to grow and germinate. So I don't think it's the best thing to winter sow with here in my growing zone 3. I'm going to try to somehow pot these up and maybe turn it into a indoor plant, because I know, these aren't going to get very far in my short outdoor growing season. One of the other things that I tried that is coming through okay is some milkweed that are really good attractors of the monarch butterfly. So this is a perennial in zone 3 that should survive my winters. I've tried it a few times, have not had luck with it, but as you can see, I did get some germination. Again, pretty small plants right now. We are just heading into the end of May. So, I'll plant these out somewhere, but we will see. Maybe they will survive our winter, hopefully. I do like dill. Dill works out good for me. Parsley. Those are my two herbs that I got going here. And again, not very big, but once you plant them out into a container or into your garden, they usually do take off. But I also start these sometimes from seed indoors and end up with a bigger plant. I can show you an example of that with cabbage and cauliflower. I'll just show you on the screen what the two winter sowing jugs look like that I did cabbage and cauliflower in. See the size of them, and then compare them here to a few that I started indoors. So this is my cabbage, looking pretty good. I think I got 4 plants coming there, and I've got a couple cauliflower. I had an issue in my garage with mice getting into our garage and chewing down a lot of my seedlings. So as you can see, I got a few here that got chewed down. So that's one of the, I guess, cons to indoor seed starting. If you have rodents in your greenhouse or garage, hopefully not in your house, getting to your seedlings, that can happen. But again, I think these are looking a little healthier, bigger than the winter sowing method. A couple things that did not turn out at all was broccoli. My soil always looks a little dry and crusty. Broccoli, and this was kale, which I was really surprised because it's a very cold tolerant, hardy lettuce, I guess we'll call it. And I didn't get any germination. So whether it was just old seed, I'm not sure, but did not do too well in this method. But like I said, onions seem to come along pretty good. I got a nice big batch here of green onions, and I got some Walla Wallas, which aren't looking too bad. I'll just plant them up. Again, I started these from seed indoors, these types of bulb onions, because they take a long time. You usually have to start them 12 weeks before last frost indoors. And I do have a bunch of these already planted out that I started indoors, and they're looking quite comparable to these. But again, you're kind of limited on how much you're going to get out of one of these jugs. And probably the best thing that I got here was spinach. It always seems to do well in this method, so I did plant a bunch of it up. And in today's video, we'll transplant this into my garden bed to show you how to do that with the winter sowing method. So you can see, I think here, lots of roots in the bottom. We're going to try and break this apart and plant it up into my garden bed. So overall, I did have success with most of these. I'm not really excited about the size of some of them. They're pretty small. And this year I have discovered the seedling snail method, which is a great way to start seeds indoors that take up a lot of less space. So you're not dealing with trays of seedlings or a whole bunch of solo cups or 3-inch, 4-inch pots. I used it for tomatoes, peppers, flowers. I will definitely be doing it with onions because I can get a lot of onions planted then in a small space. And again, like I say, I have lots of room and lots of grow lights because I do hydroponics all winter. So starting seeds indoors is going to be my preference. And this is great because you don't need the lights, you don't need space indoors. It's a very cheap, easy way to start seedlings. Different growing zones have different results. And I know in this colder growing zone, a lot of people do this method. So let me know in the comments what you think of winter sowing. Another thing that I did like about it is it just gives you something to do in the winter when you are anxious to start things and get growing and you want to get your hands in some dirt. Setting up these jugs in January, February, like I do here, is lots of fun as well. So next year, my plan is to kind of explore the seedling snail method a little more, but I think it'll work great for the herbs, the onions, flowers, something that you want a whole bunch of and that you can start in a very small space. So we'll see next winter how I feel about it. I may or may not do any winter sowing. Again, if you have some tips or experience or questions about winter sowing, please leave some in the comments. And let's plant up some spinach into my garden bed. So in this raised garden bed, my plan is to plant some cucumbers in here and in here with some trellising so that they can kind of grow over top of this garden bed. So my plan is to put the spinach in the middle here because it is probably going to bolt and stuff early July and go to seed and kind of be done by the time the cucumbers are really starting to take off. So I always like to plant these kind of cool tolerant plants somewhere in between, the warmer ones where they can kind of grow while these ones are small, and then by the time the cucumbers take over, they'll be ready to remove. So I'm just going to use the square foot method here to kind of set out how much I'm going to be planting. So for spinach in a square foot, they recommend about 9 plants. So I'm just going to kind of mark it out here so I have an idea. And then we'll take them out of the jug here and see what the root systems look like, if we can pull them apart easily and see how they like it. That's another part of the winter sowing method is getting them out of these containers sometimes can be a little tricky. I'm not exactly sure how many plants are here. I probably have more holes than I need, but I'm just going to try and just dump the whole thing out. As you can see, pretty root bound. And then I'll just use this knife or just kind of pull apart as much as I can. As you can see there, I got a pretty good root ball. I'll just keep doing that here, getting as many plants as I can. Some of them might not have as much roots as the other, but we'll try to just tease them apart gently and see if we can plant them up safely. Looks like I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Looks like I have about 9 here now, so I'm going to try and space them out using my square gardening method. Try to just see how many I can get in here. So I have a little bit of fertilizer and worm castings here. I'm just going to put a little bit into the hole. This is just a 444 that I purchased from Mind and Soil. I'll leave the link in the description box. And I also have my worm castings that I got from Mind and Soil. I got this when I bought garlic bulbs from him last fall, so this is great stuff to be putting in with all your seedlings. There, we got 1 in. I got 2 here. I'm just gonna kind of tease them apart a little bit. Okay, so there is 9 spinach seedlings all planted up in 1 square foot of space here. So this is, like I say, a great way to maximize space if you were growing in containers or garden beds, is to try to follow that square space method. I highly recommend getting one of these seeding squares to help guide you. It comes with a chart that shows you which seedlings, which seeds, based on the size of the plant once it grows, how much space it needs in 1 square foot. So again, for spinach and other lettuces, it's usually about 9 per square foot. So you just follow the color coding here. Something smaller like radishes, I think you can get a dozen or so. Beets and stuff like that are in that 9. And then something big like a cucumber or a cabbage, cauliflower, probably just 1 per square foot, or tomato plants. So it really helps you kind of set out your garden beds and maximize the space. So this is basically all there is to planting up from your winter sowing jug. Spinach works really well. Again, don't know if I'll be doing it next year, but I wanted to just talk about it with you, share my thoughts, the pros and cons on winter sowing. Love to hear what you have to say in the chat. I also want to invite you to our free gardening community on the Skool app. You can come join for free and talk about everything gardening. We have all sorts of tips. We're doing live Zooms. We do all sorts of gardening tips, sharing stories with each other. The link is in the description box below. I would love to see you there in the gardening community, gardeners growing together. So the outdoor gardening season is in full force here on the prairies. I'll be doing lots of videos on things that I'm planting up in my outdoor garden. So please subscribe, hit that like button, and we'll see you on the next video.